being fully human, being fully alive, being happy. What kind of crazy questions are we talking about here? In a business course, in a course on leadership, addressing global challenges. Are you happy? Am I happy? When are we happy? What do we know? Isn't that a silly question? Isn't it an elusive question? Let's break it down to what we know when people thrive, when people feel like they are fully human. We have, as I said, stories about who we are as human beings and theories, and look oftentimes in places to find happiness or humanity where we can see, much like this gentleman that's lost his quarter, right? As I said before, in the economistic understanding, we search for happiness and humaneness by getting more, wanting more. More money, more stuff, more. More is what we want. That's the kind of sandwich model. And you can look around you and see how people are chasing more. And oftentimes they get happiness for a moment. It's fleeting. They feel accomplished for a moment. You get a new dress, you feel good about yourself. You get a new car, you feel good about yourself. You get a new house, you feel good. You get stuff, you do feel good for a moment. You address the drive to acquire. And then there's emptiness to some degree. Because that kind of happiness is like a flash in the pan. It works for a moment, and then it's gone. We know that to feel more human and more happy and sustained happiness, you need to address those 4 drives. What a surprise. Ask yourself what you want in life. And maybe this isn't true for you, but we've done this with many people, and other researchers have looked for it. What is it people want when they want to be happy? Is it more, or is it better? Most people will say, I want a better life. I want a quality of life that allows me to feel human, to thrive. And I put the bagel there as the idea that really better is what we want. It's not more that we want, it's better. We want to be in this zone where we are above the dignity threshold and where we can thrive within the planetary boundaries. We want to be bonding in meaningful groups with meaningful purpose, psychologically safe, physically safe, and have the stuff that we need to sustain it. We want to have the food, we want to have the house, we want to have the car or the mobility, and there's more to it. That's not the end-all, be-all. There is again a balance to be struck, and most ancient wisdom traditions that focus on well-being, flourishing, and happiness will say, yes, stuff and material cannot make you happy. What a surprise. And if it lacks, it does make you unhappy if it's necessary. Think about it for yourself. Which understanding is more practical, more workable, more accurate? Is it the one where we want more and chase happiness through wanting more? Or is it more practical to think about a broader perspective of the 4 drives that allow us to feel more human, more fully human, more fulfilled, and happier. Which is more accurate? I think we have the results in that the 4-drive model is more accurate. The question is, how can you make it practical and workable? Yet going back to all of these challenges that we've discussed so far, the environmental challenge, the social sustainability challenge, the stakeholder trust challenge, the employee engagement challenge, why are there so many challenges? Why have we aligned our organizations so that we create more of these crises, that we're not able to solve them? Why are there so many challenges? It seems like they're rooted in our misunderstanding of what makes us happy, of what we want in life. Because if we wanted more, then we should be happy, because we're getting and producing more and more and more. I submit to you to think about it, that actually it's not more that we want, it's better that we want. And what that means, we need to discuss more. And I think those companies and those leaders that understand what better is, what a better life is, they can come up with products and services that do help people flourish. GDP and happiness. These are insights from global data. And here, that's the US. But GDP, as a measure of a gross domestic product, is measuring goods and services, is measuring material stuff. It's an indicator of more. We're producing more. Since the 1970s, we've produced a lot more. And yet, happiness and life satisfaction has been stagnant. You can see that here. The gray and the blue lines. They are stagnant. If we were wanting more and more made us happier, then those scales should go different. But they're uncorrelated. Another kind of graph that showcases how more money, more income, and happiness correlate. There is indeed some truth to it, and as I said, we are partly homo economicus, we want more. But maybe it's better phrased as, we want enough. What is enough? We can see from these graphs that around $80,000 income, that's where enough is for most. It could be a little bit higher, but then it actually decreases. There's too much. And happiness and income aren't really correlated anymore. So there is enough. And more isn't really better in terms of happiness. Looking at happiness over time, you see, unfortunately, that it's actually decreasing. And yet our GDP is going up. Companies make more money. Maybe some people make more money. Why are folks so unhappy? Why are there so many challenges around us? Why do people feel less alive? You probably know there's a drug epidemic. People taking a lot more drugs, dying of drugs. People are a lot more depressed. Rates of depression have increased. That could have all kinds of reasons, yet it is a fact that many people don't answer that they are feeling alive and happy. In fact, when I ask my students in New York, how do they feel when they look at the people walking past them, especially when they go to Wall Street? They'll say, well, you know what? They're sort of like robots, zombies. And they feel they need to become the same to be fitting into professional life, corporate life. It's a sort of psychopathization effect. People fit the model of more, wanting more, 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 higher status, more power, climbing up the ladder to become CEO. Hopefully to then, when you're rich, powerful, and having status, be happy. We've interviewed a lot of people, and that's sort of their motivation, their ambition. They want to get somewhere higher up to finally feel happy. The assumption is that once you're a CEO, for example, or a powerful, whatever, political leader, that you're happy. And people are surprised that that's not the case. And midlife crisis is kicking in, and people try to do what? Buy more. Buy a Porsche. Buy a new car. Get divorced. Potentially get a new house. Get a new wife. A new life. And still the happiness scores aren't really changing all that much. They may go down. There is something fundamentally wrong in this narrative of success and what makes people happy. And why is this relevant to business, you could ask? Because this is a societal issue. Indeed, it is a societal issue, and business is part of society. And managers that are trying to address these global challenges do well if they understand these dynamics of this quote-unquote toxic narrative. It's this toxic narrative that gets people to want more and more and more and chase the drive to acquire and ultimately hurt their health, be unhappy, die, or go to prison. We have a counter perspective right now coming in, that people that aren't able to be successful, they actually search some kind of happiness in being part of a group. Mostly a group that they feel is superior to another one. You have these nationalist movements that resurge, that are in oftentimes sort of like resentment-based. And they give people, indeed, a sense of belonging and happiness and higher levels of well-being. Same thing with the search for purpose. People search for meaning, and they join groups like ISIS and other groups that somehow provide that. Or they maybe seclude themselves. They move away from society. And then at some point, they break out in rampage. In the US, at least, gun violence is extreme. And oftentimes the motivation for such gun violence is just to be seen, to be heard, to at one point in their life make the news. I ask you to consider these larger concerns, reflect on your own experience in life, because we're all experts in this notion of happiness. We're not necessarily very good at being happy, yet we're all probably sort of experienced enough to reflect on failed and successful attempts to achieve certain senses of accomplishment, flourishing, and thriving.